Watch an elephant mourn her dead calf. Watch a chimpanzee refuse to leave the body of its closest companion. Watch a dog stop eating after losing its owner. The grief is real, but in all of it, you will never see a single emotional tear. Only one species on the planet does that. And after decades of research, scientists still aren't entirely sure why. Let's start with what's actually happening in your eyes, because it turns out you're producing three completely different kinds of tears, and only one of them has anything to do with emotion. Basal tears are the ones constantly, quietly, keeping your eyes moist, running 24 hours a day whether you notice or not. Reflex tears are the ones that flood out when something irritates your eye, dust, smoke, a chopped onion, a purely mechanical protective response. And then there are emotional tears, sometimes called psychic tears, the ones triggered not by anything physical touching your eye at all, but by grief, joy, frustration, even overwhelming beauty. Every land animal with eyes produces the first two types. As far as science can currently tell, only humans produce the third. That claim has actually been tested directly. In 1985, biochemist William Frey ran a systematic survey of veterinarians and zookeepers, people who spend their entire careers watching animals up close in moments of real distress, and asked them a simple question. Had they ever personally witnessed an animal crying tears in response to an emotion? The answer, across the board, was no. Decades later, that finding still hasn't been overturned. Even a newborn human doesn't start out doing it. Babies can scream at full volume for weeks after birth without shedding a single tear because the glands responsible for emotional crying simply haven't matured yet. The sound comes first. The tears arrive later, once the biology behind them finally catches up. So, if it's not just a byproduct of feeling something, what is it actually for? The first serious modern theory came from Frey himself, who proposed that crying might work like a stress valve, flushing built-up hormones out of the body during emotional distress. It's an appealing idea, but later research largely failed to support it. Emotional tears do carry a slightly different chemical makeup than basal or reflex tears, just not enough of any toxin to meaningfully explain why crying makes people feel better when it even does, which brought researchers to a very different, more social explanation, one that's become the leading theory today. In 2009, evolutionary biologist Oren Hassan at Tel Aviv University proposed something almost counterintuitive, that the actual function of tears isn't the crying itself, but the blurring. Tears physically interfere with your vision, and Hassan argued that's not a design flaw. It's the entire point. An animal that can't see clearly can't fight or flee effectively. By visibly damaging your own ability to defend yourself in the middle of a charged emotional moment, you're sending a signal that's very hard to fake. I am lowering my guard around you. Aimed at a potential aggressor, that's appeasement. Aimed at family or a partner, it's closer to an honest cry for help, one that's costly and vulnerable enough to be trusted. This is strictly human, Hassan said, and the implication is that it evolved specifically because our species survives through unusually tight, cooperative social bonds. For years, that theory had strong logic behind it, but little hard biology. Then, in 2023, researchers at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel put it to a direct chemical test. They collected genuine emotional tears from women and had a group of men sniff them without telling the men what they were smelling, since tears themselves carry no detectable odor. The results surprised even the researchers. Men who unknowingly inhaled emotional tears became significantly less aggressive than those who smelled a simple saline solution. Brain scans suggested the tears were quietly changing activity in regions linked to aggression, supporting the idea that human tears may be doing far more than simply expressing emotion. The study specifically tested women's tears on men, and the researchers themselves note they haven't yet confirmed the effect works identically in every combination of sexes. But the underlying mechanism lines up almost perfectly with what Hassan had proposed over a decade earlier. Tears don't just look vulnerable. They may chemically disarm the very aggression they're meant to diffuse. Research on how observers respond to crying backs this up from another angle entirely. Watching someone cry measurably increases how much people judge that person to need help and how willing they are to actually offer it, not because tears make someone seem more likable, but because they seem to trigger something closer to an automatic instinct to protect. Put those threads together, the blurred vision, the aggression-blocking chemistry, the triggered empathy in onlookers, and a coherent picture starts to form. Emotional tears aren't a leak in the system. They're closer to a a costly, unfakeable signal, evolution's version of laying your weapon down in front of someone so they know immediately and physically that you're not a threat and that you need something from them. A dog can whine, a chimpanzee can scream and thrash. Neither can produce a signal that simultaneously weakens its own defenses, chemically dampens aggression in whoever's nearby, and pulls another creature emotionally closer, all without a single word. Charles Darwin believed emotional tears had no evolutionary purpose at all, dismissing them as little more than a strange, purposeless byproduct of human physiology. More than a century later, researchers began reaching the opposite conclusion. The very thing Darwin dismissed may be one of humanity's most sophisticated social signals, a message written entirely in salt water, chemically and visually readable by anyone nearby, in any language on Earth. So the next time tears well up without your permission, at a wedding, at a funeral, at some scene in a film you didn't expect to hit that hard, it's worth remembering what's actually happening. Somewhere behind your eyes, a signal that took millions of years to evolve is quietly doing exactly what it was built to do, telling the people around you, in the oldest language your body knows, that you need them.